can come with difficult side effects. Hair loss is one of the most feared side effects of chemotherapy, but one treatment can help.
Cooling the scalp can prevent hair loss and maintain a sense of normalcy during a difficult time. So joining us to explain the technology, our business development manager for Paxman Scalp Cooling, Tricia Strong, and former patient Marie Francis Arcilla. Good morning, guys.
Hi, good morning.
Nice to see you. So hair retention, it is important. Like we mentioned there, during such a difficult time, you want a sense of normalcy.
You know, it's so important that some patients actually decline curative chemotherapy treatment because they're so afraid of hair loss. Like we have a 10% statistic of patients that turn down chemo, which is kind of shocking. But yes, it is massively important. I think for many patients to be able to maintain a sense of normalcy and look in the mirror and see themselves not looking like a cancer patient, and to be able to keep their diagnosis private. And it makes a huge difference. It's really just about symptom management.
Yeah. So tell us how the scalp cooling can help hair loss, and we see the device there.
Yeah, so the way it works is really a simple science. Chemotherapy is infused through the bloodstream, and so what we do is we actually cool the scalp, and that actually causes vasoconstriction, which reduces, so the blood vessels narrow, and that reduces the amount of chemotherapy that reaches the scalp. And then the other part of it is that by cooling the scalp, we actually slow the metabolism of the hair follicles. And that slows the amount of drugs that actually gets to the scalp, those two mechanisms combined.
Wow.
So Marie, you wore this cap. How did it feel physically having to wear this?
Well, it's actually not. A lot of people also are dissuaded from the technology for some reason because they think, oh, it's going to freeze my head and it's going to give me a great big headache. But actually, it's just sort of a nice cooling sensation, and then you get used to it because the cooling is sort of constant, you know, as opposed to like fluctuating on and off. So it's like you, at a certain point, you just forget about it.
Does it prevent all hair loss? Does it prevent some hair loss? Does it work for everyone, or does it vary?
It does vary, and generally what we would say is it reduces hair loss because there is still some shedding that happens with it. But the goal is to make sure that you can at least, well, the definition of success would be to try to maintain at least half of your hair. And most of our patients are successful in doing that.
Wow.
And you've become an advocate for this. Tell us about bringing it to Kaiser.
Well, I was diagnosed a year ago. I actually just finished chemotherapy last month.
Oh my gosh,
yes.
Congrats.
And as you can see, I've got all my hair.
looks amazing, yeah.
Yeah, you know, like a diagnosis comes at you like a rocket, and there's no way to plan for it. You don't know that it's gonna happen. And everything seems to be spiraling out of control, and this felt like something that I could control. I could control who knew about my diagnosis. I could control, I control my diagnosis, and I could control as well how my children reacted to my diagnosis, and I could continue working as well as my job. You know, there's a lot of like the physical is quite, you know, the appearance is quite important, and so keeping my hair and keeping my sense of normalcy was really
not having to explain to people what you're going through. You could just live your functional
life. But at the hospital that I was at, they were not offering this technology. And at Kaiser Permanente, yes, indeed. But with the support of the administration and with the doctor, of my oncologist's support, we were able to push it through. And of course, Tricia's support here, really like giving me all the support I needed to get the technology that I needed to keep my hair.
Let's talk about, I mean, that's amazing, and it seems like a complete game changer. What about the cost? Is it covered by insurance? And how widely available is this?
So that's a great question, because historically this has not been covered by insurance, and patients have had to pay out of pocket, which can be financially just not doable for most patients with deductibles, and the cost of insurance and being diagnosed is already a big financial hit, and often patients can't work during treatment, which again puts more of a financial strain. The good news is that this is now covered by insurance. Many hospitals now across the USA can offer this and become providers of scalp cooling, and it is now covered by insurance. So it's changing gradually. It's been a long journey to get there.
I'm sure.
But now the good news is that this is now available for all patients, regardless of whether or not they can afford it.
Is it typically you have to go buy it through, can you buy it on your own privately? Or?
No, the hospital actually has to contract with Paxman, and then they actually lease the machine. It's no cost to the hospital, but then they get to actually bill the insurance for the patient. No different to when they bill for the chemotherapy treatments. They would also now bill for providing the service of scalp cooling.
How long has this technology been around?
About 25 years. It is standard of care in Europe. And it's in 98% of English hospitals. As you can tell, I'm English. So that's how I actually found out about scalp cooling myself when I was diagnosed 11 years ago from my family in England, because it wasn't available here.
Wow.
And so I also successfully used it. But we didn't have machines then, it was manual. Yep. So.
And may I share too that when I went back, you know, I went for my final chemotherapy treatment. When I began, I was the only one doing scalp cooling. And to come back sort of, I guess it was a year later, and see other women taking advantage of it as well, and have them tell me how it's really like helped the quality of their lives. That was really something that made me feel good.
Sure, yeah,
you know,
I imagine.
She started something amazing at Kaiser.
Well, bravo and congrats on finishing your chemotherapy. And thank you for being here and speaking with us about this. I'm sure a lot of our viewers are going to really have learned something and take interest. So for more on scalp cooling in your area, visit paxmanscalpcooling.com or coldcap.com.
If I could be